Hey, it's Dylan again. Welcome to another episode of Gamedev Guides. In this episode, we're diving into development teams, specifically whether you should go solo, hire freelancers, or build a full team. We will try and help you decide which is right for your workflow, your project, and your budget. Please note that unless stated otherwise, not all of the points we speak about today are directly in reference to the games we are discussing. We aren't here to comment on how these other developers work on their games. Alright. First we will start with the true solo dev, Natsukaze, who's developing Maple Forest, a classic action RPG with a distinctly Game Boy inspired art style. It looks awesome. The coolest part? He's doing it totally solo, from art to music to programming, all of it. The commitment to making this game look and sound the way it does is truly amazing. He told us his main influences are Soul Blazers, Secret of Mana, and Link's Awakening. You should definitely check this one out. So, let's get into the pros and cons of true solo development. Firstly, as a solo dev, you do everything. It's likely that you will just not possess the skills to do everything. You might be bad at music, you could be an awful story writer, etc, etc. You'd need to learn these things yourself in order to make up for that, and that would take a lot of time. Thankfully, in Natsukaze's case, it seems he's a bit of a jack of all trades. He told us he learned music only recently in order to create his trailer song, whereas he has a natural talent in writing and learned coding at a very young age. However, you have complete creative control. You can try crazy ideas, you could learn a new engine, you could go for your own unique art style. Possibilities are pretty much endless. Natsukaze explained it as not being responsible for anyone else, and being able to make stupid, selfish decisions without fear of affecting anyone's pay or workload. A lot of solo devs have full-time day jobs or just do work on the side to keep up the income, which obviously makes budgeting time for development very difficult. Natsukaze identified this as his biggest weakness. He said he might only be able to spend 2, 3, 4 hours a week on game development. Being solo also does effectively place a limit on the scale of your project. Doing everything yourself takes far longer. Maple Forest has been in development for 5-ish years, and as a solo dev having a game like this in just 5 years is pretty impressive, so hats off. Lastly, and most obviously, you don't have to worry about paying anyone. You don't have to worry about miscommunications or unreliable staff. Of course, that means if you aren't making progress, nobody is. Maple Forest is nearing the end of its Kickstarter, and early access is planned for the near future. We highly recommend you think about following this game. Next, we will look at working solo with some freelancers. It's kind of an in-between option. Perhaps you might hire a pixel artist who is far better than you are, or a composer with the style of music you're looking for. We started off like this, but the game we will be focusing on is 8-Bit Adventures 2, developed by Critical Games. 8-Bit Adventures 1 and 2 are NES/SNES era inspired RPGs. We spoke with Joshua, the founder of Critical Games, about the development of the second game primarily. It's crazy how well this game embodies the best parts of its inspirations. As of very recently, it's now available on all console platforms. Joshua was open about not being the best artist or musician. The work he did for the game was more things like story writing, general game design, maps, game balancing and testing, and far more. So to make up for his weaknesses, he hired some freelancers. This is common practice. Freelancers are helpful in covering your weaknesses and backing you up on heavy workloads. As such, having an extra few pairs of hands could definitely help you increase the scope of your project. Freelancers are generally less involved with the project than another full-time employee would be, but this also means you retain full creative control, perhaps leaving a small amount of wiggle room for freelancers to experiment. Of course, they cost money, significantly more than doing a game truly solo would. According to Pat from the Game Design Forum, if you want an indie RPG that players notice immediately, you're going to need to spend $200,000 minimum, most of which will be spent on art. You might be able to bring that number down if you have, or you are, a high-end artist working for equity, but that person would have to sacrifice several years of paid labour. After 2018, Steam and console storefronts became so crowded that it's almost impossible to stand out without high production values that are visible right away. This is true regarding Godshot Chronicles, as our production has already exceeded $200,000. Joshua actually provided us his development figure of $30,000. This is actually pretty impressive for a 30 to 40 hour RPG, and he acknowledged that he got lucky with the trustworthiness and the costs of the freelancers he worked with. But obviously, not every developer could hope to accommodate such a budget. Lastly, with freelancers, you always run the risk of getting shortchanged. Freelancers could drastically overpromise and underperform, or overcharge for their level of quality or experience, or some freelancers just disappear. This was actually something we struggled with early on in Godshot's development. We had several freelancers who either disappeared in the midst of the project, or simply just didn't work out. One way to mitigate this problem is to check your freelancer's credentials and references. For instance, before he became the art director of Tiny Build, pixel artist Thomas Feichtmeyer used to freelance. He openly posts contact information on social media along with pictures of the previous games he's worked on. He also tags the developers. Before getting assets from Thomas, we were able to verify his vast portfolio, as he's done work on big projects such as Blasphemous, Songs of Conquest, Domekeeper, and more. With his credentials, references, and proven track record, Thomas is a great example of a freelancer who is very likely to deliver. We can cover freelancers in much more detail in another episode. Overall, if you're planning to hire freelancers, be prepared to spend loads of money and be prepared to screen loads of people. Now, we're going to look at a full dev team. Our example is Godchild Chronicles, of course. We have a small team. The main team is composed of 3 members, however we have a good few freelancers working for us too. Originally it was just Elman hiring freelancers, but now we have Decky and Peter on board as fully fledged team members. Each of our members has a different specialty, and has such a different role. It makes production pretty clear cut, as we always know who's doing what. Other members also make up for each other's weaknesses, giving us a well-rounded development cycle. Being part of a team like this, as opposed to just working with freelancers, means that everyone is more attached to the project. While you could say that having several members means that creative freedom is kind of limited, we think it's great, as having multiple people who are all equally as involved in the project and know the same amount about the game means that you can bounce things like story or gameplay proposals off of each other until they become much better developed ideas. On the other hand, the team may disagree with each other's ideas so much that nothing gets done, or there's constant strife and hold-up within the dev cycle. Another common problem with working as a team can be bottlenecking. Bottlenecking occurs when the rest of the team is stuck doing something as they wait for one key person to finish an asset or task. Although this can easily occur with a solo dev, bottlenecking yourself, or with freelancers, it's a very common occurrence with teams. Also, because there are so many moving parts within a team, so many more things can go wrong. For instance, a key member going to the hospital could significantly delay the project. Well, there you have it. It's our intro/guide to the types of game development. Feel free to post which one you would prefer and why in the comments below. And cheers to Natsukaze and Joshua, who provided excellent and insightful help in making this video. I encourage you to check out their work, links in the description below. We have enjoyed the positive feedback to this series, and we're going to keep putting out more videos in the hopes of helping future indie devs realize their vision. Thanks for watching, stay tuned for the next episode, and I'll see you then.